Welcome once again, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, to Mysteries from Beyond the Other Dominion. I'm your host, Dr. Franklin Rule, and today we're going to tell you why UFOs are not landing in big cities, reveal secrets concerning Tyrannosaurus Rex, ask if our moon is an artificial body, report on the Phantom Army of Mount Kilimanjaro, and even show you how to get gum off your shoe, and cover other intriguing subjects. Now, why aren't UFOs landing in big cities? Why are they always landing in the boondocks and hinterlands of America and other nations? Indeed, skeptics claim that this invalidates the UFO hypothesis. Well, there's several good reasons why they're not landing in those big cities. For instance, they may be afraid of crashing into our skyscrapers. They may actually fear us. Report after report tells of UFOnauts, those are the pilots of UFOs, being of small stature, often 3 or 4 feet in height. They may legitimately fear we might attack them, kill them, dissect them, incarcerate them, or put them on exhibit in an exobiological gardens. On another front, they may be landing here simply to catalog what's on our planet, gathering up flora and fauna, i.e. animal and plant samples, perhaps adhering to a credo not to interfere with inferior races, which we, of course, would be since they landed on Earth before we landed on their planet. Another possibility is that they're gathering rocks for what's called a mass drive engine. This is an engine that would use a magnetic field to propel rocks through the body of a spacecraft. It would make for a very efficient way to travel from planet to planet. Indeed, we have such plans on drawing boards today on Earth. If we've thought of it, perhaps intelligent aliens have already designed it. And unfortunately, on a more ominous note, they may be here engaging in climatological warfare, that is, using their UFOs to either cool or heat our atmosphere, with the ultimate result that the human race would die off. For example, they might actually be increasing the cloud cover, which would reflect impinging sunlight back into space, ushering us into a new ice age and, of course, destroying the human race. These are all possibilities of why UFOs are not landing in big cities, why ETs are not coming out and extending their claw in friendship. Now, when we return, we'll investigate the possibility that our moon is an artificial body. Stay tuned. Don't go away. Just been viewing a clip of the classic 1902 sci-fi film A Trip to the Moon, produced by the genius Georges Méliès. Now, Méliès tragically wound up as a toy salesman and ultimately died in an insane asylum. But he was the first to use the dissolve and the double exposure. But he couldn't do this, and he couldn't do this. Is it possible that our moon is an artificial body? Back in 1977, 2 Russian astrophysicists, Mikhail Vazin and Alexander Sherbakov, proposed just that in a Russian journal known as Sputnik. They argued that for 3 reasons, we should believe that our moon is an artificial body. First, they pointed out that our moon occupies a nearly perfectly circular orbit about the Earth. This is in contrast to other planetary moons, which are in elliptical orbits. Secondly, when our lunar vehicle, that is, the Apollo 11 lander, ascended from the surface of the moon, it dropped back a module which yielded bell-shaped or Gaussian reverberation patterns, suggesting that the moon is hollow. And thirdly, when the Russian spacecraft, the Luna, explored the surface of the moon, it found that the mass of the moon is concentrated in an outer shell surrounding a hollow center. Now, hollow-centered bodies simply are not normally found in space. They must have been created, such as by aliens. Now, why would aliens create such a vehicle? Perhaps their own star was about to die, so they converted their own moon into a spacecraft, which has now become our moon. And I might point out, way back in 1918, Robert Goddard, our nation's foremost rocket pioneer, argued that we Earthlings in the future would have to convert asteroids into spacecraft in order to escape the ravages of our own sun, which unfortunately will explode into a red giant at some point in the future. And inside the moon, we might find several sections, perhaps living quarters, aliens alive or dead, engines, and food stores. Future expeditions to the moon will confirm whether or not this theory is correct. And just what might these beings on the moon look like? Well, the 1952 serial Radar Men from the Moon suggested the following possibility. Let's take a look at it. Well, those guys in the moon really play rough, don't they? By the way, have you noticed I'm wearing shades? Would you believe that sunglasses were invented even before the 15th century by the Chinese? Using smoke quartz, these glasses were worn not for protection from sunlight, but to shield Chinese judges' eyes from litigants in court so they could not see what their reactions were to court cases and the evidence being presented in them. It wasn't until the 1930s, when our military started to design sunglasses for pilots, that we saw their use for protection from sunlight. And the average person wasn't wearing sunglasses for that reason until about the 50s and 60s. By the way, UV light or ultraviolet light actually triggers cataract formation. So anytime you go outside in the sun, make sure you're wearing sunglasses that offer UV protection. Just a little health tip from Mysteries from Beyond the Other Dominion. Now, when we return, we'll reveal secrets concerning Tyrannosaurus Rex, the king of the dinosaurs. Welcome back, and now for the secrets of Tyrannosaurus Rex, the king of the dinosaurs. But first, our trivia question of the day, and thank you. Let me extricate from its paper prison. The question today: in which state was Tyrannosaurus Rex primarily found? The prize, the only prize, one pat on the back that you'll have to administer to yourself if and only if you have the correct answer. I'll take a sip of water and be back momentarily with that correct answer. Okay, time is up. Again, in which state was Tyrannosaurus Rex primarily found? The answer, Montana. He was basically an American dinosaur. He had relatives up in Alberta, Canada, and Mongolia. He stood 20 feet tall. That's the equivalent of a two-story building. He weighed 7.5 tons. He had teeth 7 inches long. He had the most powerful jaw of any creature that walked the face of this earth. But he was a cowardly dry gulcher. He'd hide behind a rock and then charge his prey. Actually, he could move fast for a short time like a rhinoceros. If he missed his dinner, he probably went hungry that night. However, he had a second chance because he was also a scavenger, a carrion eater. He would eat dead dinosaurs. Now, please note that when he moved, he didn't drag his tail on the ground. He had it uplifted for proper leverage. Look at these forelimbs. They're mutated. There's no way they can reach up into his mouth to help him eat. The theory is that they helped him get up in the morning. He would sleep in the fashion of a crocodile, and then in the morning, these powerful, mutated limbs would push him to an upright stance. How about that for the king of the dinosaurs, who was right there at the very end 65 million years ago? Now, did he live in herds? We don't know, but one film examined that possibility. It was the 1948 classic, Unknown Island. Let's take a look. By the way, that film starred Richard Denning, who starred as the governor in Hawaii Five-0, as well as Virginia Gray and Barton McLean. Now, as promised, the Phantom Army of Mount Kilimanjaro. Way back in 1942, Paul Smiles, a lieutenant in the British Army stationed in Kenya, in Nairobi, was given a furlough. He decided to go lion hunting in Tanganyika, specifically at the foot of Mount Kilimanjaro. A native guide told him that there was a pride of lions on the loose that was no longer protected because it had been hunting native stock. He got into a shooting stand, and one night he spotted the pride. He was ready to take aim and fire when suddenly shots mysteriously rang out and scattered that pride. Of course, Paul was angry. He missed his shot. So he called the guide over, and the guide told him the following, that those shots came from phantom soldiers who were reenacting a battle from 1917. The guide took him to a battlefield, and Paul Smiles could not believe his eyes. Phantom German and English soldiers shooting each other. And of course, there was a graveyard nearby where those men had fallen 25 years before that. Now, we have evidence from around the world and all time periods, from ancient Crete, from Virginia from the Civil War, and from the island of Corregidor from World War II, where there are reports of phantom soldiers reenacting the battles that took their life. Somehow, these individuals who died so tragically, so violently, so prematurely, cannot leave Earth. They must remain here and reenact those battles that took their lives years earlier. We have evidence from around the world and from all time periods. There must be something to it. Consider that for food for thought as we go to perhaps a more pleasant subject, the largest rose bush in the world, and it's right here in the U.S., it's specifically Tombstone, Arizona. It's 8,000 square feet in diameter. It also happens to be what's called a Lady Banksia. That's one of 4,000 varieties of rose bushes. Just for you, we sent over one of our loyal cameramen to take the following footage. Roll tape. Intriguingly, none other than Robert Ripley visited the bush in person and wrote it up in his Believe It or Not column. And today, it is listed in the Guinness Book of Records. It actually represents a great symbol of friendship. In the fall of 1884, a young Scotch girl arrived as a bride with her mining engineer husband in Tombstone. Mr. and Mrs. Henry G. took up residence at the boarding house of the Visana Company. In charge was a Norwegian girl, Mrs. Adamson, who had come to the United States as a bride too, and knew the heaviness of a homesick heart. When Mary G's own house was built, her family sent her a box of shrubs from her native Scotland. One she gave to Mrs. Adamson, and together they planted it in the spring of 1885. That shrub has today become the world's largest rose bush, bringing forth millions of white blossoms every April. And it is still growing larger and larger, year after year. And in an upcoming episode, we just may show you the bush flowering. Now it's time for Dr. Rule's Weird Crime File. Dateline, Atlanta, Georgia, January 5th, 1989, a Wednesday afternoon. Two thugs came into Mr. Mason's Chicken and Biscuits brandishing pistols. They demanded cash from the register. The clerk was about to hand it to them when an alarm sounded. The cowards just sped right out without getting their money. Do you know what that alarm was? It was the biscuit timer telling the chef it was time to take the biscuits off. This is a case where biscuits thwarted a robbery. Now let's look at the surveillance camera showing what actually happened. Roll tape.
Give me the money! What is that? What?
Okay, Now it's time to show you how to get gum off your shoe. Anytime I step into gum, I'd like to strangle whoever spat it on the ground. But here's a simple tip for you. You take the shoe and place it in a plastic bag. Secure it with a twist tie and place that in the freezer compartment of your refrigerator, keeping it there for about 30 minutes. Now, after 30 minutes, remove the shoe from the freezer, take off the plastic bag, and you can lop the gum right off with a knife, screwdriver, anything with a flat surface. We're going to find out if that works right now. Here goes. Do you see that? Came right off. Science in action. Now, here are a few intriguing facts about the history of bubble gum. The first bubble gum was manufactured back in 1906 by the Fleer Corporation, but unfortunately it was too sticky, too brittle. But in 1928, they came out with a very excellent bubble gum. The largest bubble ever blown had a diameter of 22 inches, almost 2 feet. There's a report of one man having bubble gum explode in his mouth and cause the loss of several teeth. And we Americans love bubble gum so much, we've chewed 113 million miles of it, enough to go to the moon and back over 200 times. How about that? Now, when we return, we're going to show you video footage from a viewer purporting to show a real UFO. You've got to see this. Stay tuned for our video mailbag. Welcome back to Dr. Rule's Fascinating Film Facts. Boris Karloff's real name was William Henry Pratt. He appeared with a young Jack Nicholson in the 1963 horror film The Terror. The question, can you spot young Jack?
My soul will be damned to eternal perdition.
Let me see who you really are. No! Don't go back! You must not! No! No! Let me go! What kind of a woman are you? Where are you? Who are you?
Clayton the Lone Ranger Moore was often cast as a villain in serials such as the 1952 thriller Radar Men from the Moon, in which he accidentally broke the nose of star George Wallace in a restaurant fight scene. Watch closely for the big hit.
Drop her, I'll drill him.
Bela Lugosi was born Bela Blasko in Lugos, Hungary. Although he never learned to drive in real life, he was seen behind the wheel in The Devil Bat. Now it's time for our video mailbag. Judy Fainberg, a fan in Colorado Springs, Colorado, sent us a UFO video. She took it on Tuesday, August 18th, 1992. She and her husband were traveling along I-25 during the afternoon about 3 p.m. when they spotted a UFO above some high-tension wires. They stopped the car, whipped out their camcorder, and took the following film footage. It looks pretty authentic. Let's have a closer look. That looks pretty authentic, doesn't it? Well, we sent it down to our lab for analysis. Do you know what that UFO was? It was a hubcap. Shame on you, Judy, for trying to fool the rule. Now, if you should have some legitimate film footage of a UFO, ET, Bigfoot, ghost, or anything else of an intriguing nature, send it to us. If you have a question, put yourself before the camcorder and ask it. If you've uncovered an intriguing fact, again, put yourself in front of that camcorder and mail it in. If you do not own a camcorder, then put your questions and answers in writing and send them to the address shown on the screen. Now, we don't guarantee to use anything, but if we do, you may achieve a small measure of fame, and that's certainly a lot better than a slap on the belly with a wet trout. Now, until next time, may the power of the universe be with you.